What's going on, guys? It's Fight Season MMA, and today I want to just talk about the two fights from UFC Paris that were absolutely amazing, or just the fights that had the most implications inside the UFC. The main event, Renato Moicano beats Moicano Vs St-Denis in a doctor stoppage after the second round, after that absolutely brutal first round that Moicano put on him. And the second fight, that beating Nasourdine Imovov, beating Brendan Allen 29-28 by unanimous decision in the co-main event of UFC Paris, possibly a title eliminator, and if not, a fight that is going to grant Nasourdine Imovov a shot at a title eliminator. If you guys enjoy the UFC content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel grow. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications, just so you guys are always notified when UFC content releases. But without further ado, let's break down these two fights, kind of talk about their implications inside the UFC, and of why both of these individual fights are so important for the organization as a whole. So, in the main event of UFC Paris, we had Renato Moicano go on against Moicano Vs St-Denis, and I know Moicano Vs St-Denis was a big favorite considering that style that he has going forward, just being absolutely reckless and having a gas tank. That, yes, I know he gassed out in that Dustin Poirier fight, but he had a staph infection. He is absolutely relentless inside the UFC octagon. But Renato Moicano showed that there is levels to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He showed that he in his technical ability is going in there and could beat any single person possibly in that lightweight division. Moicano looked amazing in there. He was able to get the spinning kind of takedown after catching the body kick from Benoit, and he know Benoit loves to throw out that left body kick. He was doing it against Bonfim in that fight, and he caught Fervola with a left high kick to the head. So Moicano was able to study that off Moicano St-Denis, and he was able to stop the body kick and turn it in against Benoit himself after that fight. So he was able to get down. He was able to go into back control, into full mount, absolutely pounding on Moicano St-Denis, making his face look like an absolute massacre in that fight. Benoit really couldn't see within that fight, and it was something that was super insane to be able to watch, considering that Moicano St-Denis is one of the most resilient fighters in the organization. And I really think that this fight could have kept going. I do think that the doctor stoppage was correct, and I think the only reason the fight could have kept going is because of how strong and tough Benoit is. He is one of the toughest and most resilient fighters inside the UFC, considering that he won a round pretty much with no vision in that second round. But Moicano was teeing off of him on that first round. Benoit had no answers. He was doing some very odd techniques, or some very questionable situational awareness in that exchange, because Benoit, Moicano had Benoit's back and was in a body triangle, and Benoit was rolling deeper into the triangle, which ultimately just led Moicano to roll in the full mount and ultimately got pounded away on. And that was something that was incredibly concerning for me to say, because Benoit's not being able to stop the body triangle or rolling into the wrong direction to only further the situation that he was in was something that was incredibly just worrying to watch, considering that Benoit is going to have to face the Charles Oliveira's, he's going to have to face the Arman Sarukians, the Islam Makhachevs, and yes, Moicano might be one of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artists in the top 15 of the lightweight division, minus someone like Charles and maybe some other individuals, but the wrestling of a lot of these other individuals is going to really hamper Benoit if that really happens. But Moicano was able to get up there and just start teeing off of him. Moicano probably won the first round 10-7, and if it wasn't a 10-7, it was a 10-8. I'm just not the biggest fan of giving 10-7s because I don't know how far to go considering off of one round, but I scored it a 10-8. It could have 100% been a 10-7, and in that second round, Moicano looked like he took the round off. Benoit was able to get some good strikes in, even though that round really wasn't that exciting. But Moicano St-Denis was able to possibly take that round off, and the doctor ultimately came in to stop the fight, which I did think that was the correct decision. So I do think that Moicano St-Denis should fight someone who's a little bit lower ranked than him, considering that he has lost his last two fights to Dustin Poirier, who is, yes, better than Renato Moicano, but Moicano too, who was able to show Benoit that he's just kind of not ready for that top echelon of the lightweight division. So I think you give someone Benoit right outside the UFC lightweight top 15, and I think that you give Renato Moicano either the easy fight of Dan Hooker or Paddy Pimblett. I think the Paddy Pimblett is the fight that everyone wants to see, but I do think if he takes that Paddy Pimblett fight, he wants to get a title shot right after it, and I don't think that is really a logical thing. I think if he beats Dan Hooker, I think that would be a better chance for Renato Moicano to be able to jump into a title shot or into a number one contender fight, considering that he beats someone who is amazing in the UFC lightweight division like Hooker. So I do think that the better fight for Moicano would be taking that Hooker fight, but I do think that The Paddy Pimblett fight is the fight that everyone wants to see, and a fight that I do favor Moicano in just because of his technical jiu-jitsu ability compared to Paddy's kind of reckless jiu-jitsu ability. But I do think that whatever Moicano does next is going to be entertaining. Moicano wants money. He is one of the most exciting fighters inside the UFC with that massive personality and truly just being an entertaining soul himself. In the co-main event, we had Brendan Allen taking on Nasourdine Imovov, and this was a fight that went underneath the radar considering that it was a co-main event on a fight night card, but this was possibly a #1 contenders match for that UFC middleweight title shot. And Brendan Allen was incredibly confusing out there. I picked Allen to win the fight, but he was actually winning in some areas of the stand-up, which was actually concerning considering that he was shooting the takedown so much, and that I think if he was able to stand and trade a little bit more and then possibly fake the takedown and not rely on the takedown as much, it would have gave him a better opportunity to beat someone like Nasourdine Imovov. Imovov is so good, and it is actually concerning of how good he is inside that middleweight division, and it's crazy to consider that Sean Strickland absolutely decimated Imovov, but Imovov is so good. He was able to compete with Brendan Allen in the striking, probably winning most of the exchanges, but also stuffed the takedown and showed that he has great jiu-jitsu ability considering he is a Dagestani who was training in France and whatnot. So I do think the Imovov should get the Israel Adesanya fight, which I think is a great #1 contender fight. I do think that he should either get that fight or he should get the winner of Whitaker and Hamzat if they aren't going to make that the #1 contender fight after Sean Strickland. So I do think that Adesanya versus Imovov would be an amazing fight, possibly as a 5-round co-main event on a pay-per-view card. I think that that would be an incredible fight considering that Imovov is a great striker. He's also got great ground game, and that he's a great fighter just overall, and I do think that he is probably the future of the UFC middleweight division. It is kind of absolutely amazing to see how good Nasourdine Imovov truly is, considering that he possesses all the well-rounded ability to go in there and win the grappling exchanges, to win on the feet, and to ultimately be able to win in the striking department against someone like Brendan Allen, who is a great, well-rounded fighter. I do think that Brendan Allen is still a great fighter inside that middleweight division, although Nasourdine Imovov is going to be a very hard fight for a lot of different individuals. I did think that this fight would be incredibly close. I did pick Allen to win, but I'm not 100% surprised by the outcome. So I do think that Brendan Allen should fight someone a little bit below him, and I don't know if you should give him someone like the winner of Anthony Hernandez and Michelle Pereira. That might be a great fight to kind of have. There's a lot of different individuals down there. I don't think you make the Caio Hollow fight because Caio just beat Jared Cannonier. I think you find someone who's a little bit below him. You might want to do the Marvin Vettori fight again. That might be a very fun fight considering that fight was originally scheduled, and I do think that is a very interesting fight. So probably if I had to say, in my opinion, you do Brendan Allen versus Marvin Vettori next as a fight night main event. And ultimately, like I said, I think Nasourdine Imovov has an incredible future in front of him. He's one of the best up-and-coming UFC middleweights right now, and I just think that he has the ability to possibly become champion. I don't know if he can beat Dricus du Plessis. I'm not picking him to beat Dricus, but I do possibly pick him to beat someone like Israel Adesanya, considering that he's got a great jiu-jitsu style as well as a great stand-up style. I don't know if he could beat someone like Strickland or Whitaker, but Imovov is definitely going to be in the conversation as the top UFC middleweights currently. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please let me know what you think down below in the comment section of Renato Moicano absolutely decimating Benoit St-Denis in that main event, and Nasourdine Imovov getting a very impressive win in that co-main event in UFC Paris. I do think that both of these fighters, Moicano and Nasourdine Imovov, have bright futures ahead of them in their respective division. If it were me, I would give Moicano the Dan Hooker fight, but the UFC organization is probably to give him the Paddy Pimblett fight, considering Paddy's a great star. This could be like a featured bout on a pay-per-view card. I could see this being at UFC 310 in Las Vegas, to where you have like the main event, co-main event, and then Paddy Pimblett versus Renato Moicano. This is an incredible fight, and I see possibly someone like Nasourdine Imovov versus Israel Adesanya happening at UFC 311 early next year. I do think that both of these fighters, Moicano and Imovov, could possibly challenge for the title one day, but I do think that Imovov is the future of the UFC middleweight division. If you guys enjoy the UFC content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That is the best way to help the channel grow. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications just so you guys are always notified when UFC content releases. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon with more UFC content and news.